Welcome to the Rock Solid Families podcast. Wow, we have a hot topic today.
Hot pockets.
Hot topic. I'm Linda Hutchinson, and I'm here with my husband, Merle, and we're ready to talk about something that, man, it is a tough one.
Well, it is because it's such a fine line, right? It's a fine line. And so we're probably going to step on toes or even our own toes where we thought, well, gosh, it wasn't that big of a deal. But guys, what we're going to talk about today is just the whole idea of having like an emotional affair.
Yeah.
So oftentimes people think of the physical affair, right? And it's not too difficult to wrap your head around the idea that, I can see where that could go wrong.
Yeah.
But the emotional affair can get a little trickier.
Well, and people will say, well, like, I didn't sleep with them.
Right.
Like, I didn't have an affair. I didn't sleep with them.
Right.
And so we're talking about really the signs of an emotional affair. Like, here are some warning signs. Here are some things to look for and really watch out for and protect from that really involves no physical intimacy, but can definitely be the catalyst of more things down the road.
You know what our friend Carl says?
What?
If you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. And that's kind of what the emotional affair is about. If you keep entertaining the idea and you keep sort of just opening that door, there's a very good chance that eventually you're going to walk through the door. And so that's kind of the deal here. And again, we're not here to call anybody out in particular as much as maybe this is worth giving a thought to.
Yeah.
And then let's give some ways that we can safeguard against it and hopefully, secure the marriage a little bit better.
And really, this show is not for people who have had affairs necessarily. It's for any couple that wants to protect their marriage. And so if you're married or you have a significant other and you want to protect that relationship, this show is for you, because we're really saying these are the things that you've got to guard against and watch out for.
Yeah.
But before we do,
let's thank our sponsors. Let's thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. So we thank you, you sponsors out there. We also just want to thank all of our listeners and viewers for continuing to follow our messaging and spread that message. Lord knows we really can benefit by you guys helping to share the words that we put out, hoping that they're helpful. But more than anything, when you share them, you usually know why you're sharing it, because you know that somebody's actually going through something we happen to be talking about. So that relevancy really hits home.
And subscribing really helps us to get the word out. And the more subscribers, the more it bumps up the search engine. So please, not just like the show, but to subscribe to the show and share the show. That really helps us get these messages out.
Yeah. A couple quick announcements and we'll roll through those. Hey, do you remember we have fitness classes here at Rock Solid
I remember
Families?
because I teach them in the morning.
You teach them, I know.
Cheers.
And I need my classes are weak right now, guys. So I think we're going to have to work on my hours because they're running weak right now. But anyway, we run a Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning from 8 to 9 with what we call our finishing classes due to a type of exercise that we do called finishing. But it's a great fitness class. And then we do a Wednesday evening at 5 p.m. And we do a Saturday morning, which is more geared towards our dads. That's our Strong Dads class. And that starts at 8, and we go from 8 to 9:30. So, if you want to get yourself back in shape or just maintain shape or just do some different type of fitness, come check us out at Rock Solid Families.
And we also, on every fourth Saturday, which is kind of what's happening with your Strong Dads, is there's been some inconsistency because this class we teach every fourth Saturday called Families Rock. And it is at the Lawrenceburg, Indiana Firehouse on Tate Street in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. It's from 8:30 to 12. And any parent, any adult is welcome, whether it be a parent, grandparent, whether it be a guardian. We really try to work with co-parenting, especially very difficult dynamics, family dynamics. So we'd love for you to check it out. And you can see all that on our website.
Yeah. And let's get into maybe a little bit of definition on what we're talking about with the emotional affair. So an emotional affair is when you have a close more intimate relationship with someone outside of your marriage, okay? And you have an emotional connection where you find yourself sharing things that normally you might share with your spouse, all right? But you're sharing maybe some of your dreams, some of your passions, some of your secrets even with this other person that's outside of the marriage. It can even go on to sharing some of your fantasies, and some of those fantasies, more than dreams, can turn sexual, okay? Yeah. So that's what this emotional affair thing is about. And what we're going to talk about today is just how it can start to leak into being way more than just an emotional affair. And I also think they're not the same thing, all right? But anytime somebody steals your attention or anything steals your attention, so you could be having, quote unquote, an affair with your job.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It could be stealing all your energy, all your dreams go to your job, all your passions. It could be your hobby, right? But all of these things that pull away from the energy that you're putting into the marriage. And so, but today specifically, we're talking about the emotional affair with another person.
Well, you know, hon, that makes me think, because you mentioned work and hobbies and stuff, and sometimes it's that common bond where you are in that place together and you're sharing things in common that starts to make them feel like, well, they just get me, they know me, they finish my sentences, or we're on the same page with this. And so sometimes it's that environment that creates this feeling of, wow, this person is different or special than my spouse.
Yeah, it's not unusual that a spouse, you and your spouse may only have a couple hours a day where you're actually together, maybe a couple hours in the evening or whatever, but you might be spending 6, 7, 8 hours alongside of somebody else. So they have a lot of your time and maybe even your heart and head space.
Well, Jesus warns us in Matthew 5, verse 27 and 28, you have heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. Jesus says, but I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully, and that for a man at that point too, you've already committed adultery in his or her heart. And so that's why emotional affairs are dangerous. And so we're going to talk about why, the why behind the emotional affair.
Yeah. Well, and these are some of the signs that you will see that begin to happen. All right. So guys, you might want to get a pen or pencil or whatever and jot some of these down, because some of these might spark your own thought, like, oh, okay. So when you're married, you have your partner, and you get used to doing life together, and you've had a common mind, and the two shall become one. You've had a common mind on a lot of things. You've had common sharing of time and house and duties. But all of a sudden, one of the first things that you get is you start to get a mind shift, all right? And this is when your mind starts to be occupied, like we talked about just a second ago, starts to be occupied a little bit more frequently than maybe it was before by another person, and maybe even more so than your spouse. So in other words, you're just driving down the road and you find yourself thinking about this person more, okay? And so when you got that quiet sort of time, that person's beginning to occupy some headspace.
And that person may know nothing about that other person. They may have no ill intentions, but you are starting to let that mind creep and shift. And then there's a time shift where all of a sudden you're spending a little bit more time at the gym or at work or at the game or at practice. And so you're spending more time, and all of a sudden this person becomes a priority over your spouse. And their spouse starts, a lot of times get resentful, and they don't even know why or what's going on, but they just know they don't like it.
Yeah, it starts with the mind shift, right? And when the mind starts thinking about them more, then that means you start to get these little cravings. And that's, I crave to be around that person or to be connected a little bit more. I want to check this out more, right? And so the time starts to increase. But then you start to see, if this starts to go basically plant roots, right? And starts to grow, you start to see an emotional shift.
Yeah.
You start to see that you care to hold this person, hold their heart differently, care about them more than just a friend or a coworker, right? And you feel that they care about you as well oftentimes, right? And so when the emotional connection comes, the reason why this is so important is because emotions are fuel. right? So if rock solid families, we say all the time, it started because of an angry passion, right? And so emotions are fuel to motivate us to go do things. Well, now when the emotions start to get triggered, now I've got some fuel to say, I'm going to keep pursuing this.
When I have a couple that comes in my office and there's a drift, I will 9 times out of 10 ask them, is there anybody else?
Right.
Because that creates the drift. Like, oh, well, this person listens to me. Oh, I share my dreams with them. Oh, they spend time and hear me and listen and understand me. And so they wonder why they're all mad or frustrated at their spouse. Well, it's because we created this emotional shift where I'm sharing this stuff with somebody besides my spouse.
Right.
And it's somebody of the opposite sex.
Yeah. Finally, and it gets to one of the deepest levels that we can get to is the intimacy shift.
Yeah.
I'm now desiring the deepest places of my life to be with this other person. And so when we talk about intimacy shift, now we're actually dreaming about a future with them. Maybe we're talking about doing exciting, adventurous things with them because we have more fun or interest in them. And the intimacy shift then actually even fantasies of sex and maybe that moving into sex. So even if you're having sex with your spouse, that doesn't mean you're necessarily thinking about your spouse. It could be that you're fantasizing about this other person. And so each one of these shifts is signaling that we're going a little bit deeper into the investment of this affair.
Deeper into quicksand.
Yeah.
And it is quicksand. And the problem is sometimes it's involving one person that's maybe married, but then one person that's not. And they've got all their dreams and hopes into this basket of somebody who says they're separated from their partner or they're getting a divorce or their spouse is that person's spouse is having an affair. So this is who I want to be with. And man, that intimacy, we start making promises and having dreams and sharing intimate things. And that is such a dangerous, dangerous place to be. And so if you are doing that right now with someone that is not your spouse, we're highly encouraging you to get out of it. Get out of it and admit it, saying, I went too far. This is not right. Tell that person, like, this is wrong. And they might not even see anything yet. They're just maybe like, you're just close friends, right? Like I hear people say, oh, well, that's my best friend. This is my spouse, but this is my best friend. We grew up together, right? They know more about me than my spouse does. Right. That's a really dangerous place to be for somebody of the opposite sex.
Yeah. So, hon, let's walk through and let's talk about, all right, so how do we stop it and then how do we prevent it, right? Yeah. Like ultimately we'd like to prevent it before we even have to stop it, okay? Yeah. But if you are hearing this today and you're going, some of these things could be going on in my world, okay? Yeah. So the very first thing really is when this stuff's going on, you will talk yourself out of it as being a problem. It's kind of like the same way we see it with porn and the same way we see it with alcohol and drug addiction. When it first starts, we go, no, like it's not that big of a deal, right?
We rationalize it, justify it.
We'll deny it. We'll dismiss it as not being a big deal. And so we really have to stop walking in the denial. If somebody else is popping into our head more frequently than they were before, right off the bat, you need to give that a second thought of like, what's going on here? So stop denying it, stop dismissing it, and start, as you said before, start to own it.
Yeah, don't be ignorant is number 2, because emotions are powerful and you might not have any. This is what I've heard before in a lot of couples. You as a man may not have any fantasies, dreams, or any thoughts of that other person, but man, that single secretary in your office, she might have, and she might be taking your lead of going to lunch for work or talking about your ex-boyfriend. They may take that as you care about me and you want to be with me, and that might not be anything that is in your mind, but don't be ignorant of what could happen, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can detect flirtation going on, and so you have to have that old flirtation radar needs to be up, and if it doesn't feel right, then it's worth giving a second thought to say what's going on here.
And I've had several couples who have had this hard conversation about, I feel uncomfortable with your secretary, or I feel uncomfortable with your coworker, and so that spouse has said, man, I totally, that's not what my intentions are. What do you need from me? And that really gives that person a sense of, wow, okay, you you had no intention of it being something more. And so this is how we'll safeguard.
Right. And so here are the safeguards,
Here are
right?
the safeguards.
So what do you need from me? The very first thing we need is we have to reset and prioritize our spouse.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to say, you know, I haven't been spending as much time with my wife. We used to have a date night, or we used to go out and do a hobby or activity together. And I haven't been doing that, nor am I even desiring it that much. Okay. So that's a time where I have to say, hey, honey, we need to get the date night back on the calendar.
Yeah.
You
But
know.
it also, for instance, I've heard this before where there's a major project that somebody has to do. Maybe they're on a committee together, or maybe they have this work thing going on. And so it's been you two, the two people that aren't married. And so what I would say is prioritize your spouse by maybe including them. Maybe they go on the work trip with you, or they're on the committee with you, or they're in the communication, the emails and the texts with you.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of people safeguard their marriage when they've got to be with somebody for work or something specific, but yet they include their spouse, so their spouse does feel prioritized.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, the second one is to maintain open communication, and that is the idea of just being able to have those honest daily check-ins. You know, how are you doing? Is everything okay? To be able to have that conversation, you have to be able to have it, but you also have to be able to hear it. So sometimes, a lot of times, these conversations don't take place because you're not quite sure how it's going to land. So you have to be able to keep the communication open. And the only way that you really have a good way to do that is, as I refer to in our daily check-in conversations, it's like brushing your teeth. You got to have a daily practice of how you check in. You know, teeth don't just jump out of your head. They tend to rot out. And you know, this emotional connection typically does not just start instantly and go from 0 to 10. It actually, something else was rotting and we found something else to replace it. And so you have to recognize that we have to be able to talk and keep that communication open.
And that goes both ways. You know, if you are the spouse that's concerned, that you express, like, I feel uncomfortable that this person always sends you these family pictures or these pictures of her in a bathing suit, or tells you all of her stories or woes of dating, and like, I feel uncomfortable with that. Like, you've got to say that so it doesn't build the resentment and the jealousy and the anger, because that's not fair to your spouse. If they have no intentions and they don't see it as a problem, but you do, you got to maintain that open connection and communication.
Yeah. And the next one here is really, I could even identify this as the Billy Graham rule, right? This is the idea of you've got to set boundaries. You've got to actually put that picket fence up around the marriage. And you have to say, hey, you know, no one gets to cross through this fence, you know, without walking through the gate. And the gate, you are the gatekeeper. And so you got to set the boundaries. You got to say, hey, like, if you got that work thing going on, maybe you can't invite your wife because maybe it doesn't work for varieties of reasons, but maybe you can include another coworker. You know, hey, you invite a friend to go with you on that, so that we have multiple people involved, so we're never just alone with that person.
Yeah, so the Billy Graham rule really is that Billy Graham, with his wife, I think Ruth was her name, basically said that I will not travel or dine or meet alone with somebody of the opposite sex, just to protect his reputation. And we've actually incorporated that in our work. You and I do not coach male or females of the opposite sex alone. Occasionally it happens by, you know, somebody canceling, the partner canceled or something, but we will for sure let each other know, like, hey, I ended up meeting with a husband by himself because the wife got sick. And so we don't go to Skyline with a person of the opposite sex.
That's a restaurant if you're out of the area.
You know, where people are like, oh, I saw Merle with this really hot woman last night. You know, I tell this story before that I was on another part of Cincinnati, the other side of Cincinnati, meeting lunch Chipotle with my brother. Okay. And I was like in Blue Ash or something where he worked. And I remember coming in that restaurant and hugging him and us sitting down and eating. And somebody from my church on the other side of the city saw us. And I could just see their wheels turning. Because, you know, here I am on the other side of the city with a good looking guy. I gave him a hug. It was almost like we were hiding on the other side of the city. And so they made a comment to me, not that day. They didn't say they saw me that day, but they said something the next day. And, you know, I had to and make sure they knew that was my brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Do they know that you have brothers all over town?
Stop. Just two.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the boundaries. The other thing is it goes back about with the prioritize your spouse, but now it's you gotta nurture, you gotta fertilize. You've got to be very intentional about saying we're gonna just feed into each other, and it's so easy to feed other things. We've struggled with feeding work, with feeding activities, but when you start even feeding other people, right, and especially of the opposite sex, that there's only so much energy to go around, and if you prioritize somebody else, you're taking that energy from the person that you might be hurting. So the idea that you nurtured, we were just talking earlier this week. It's like we're due to go see a movie together, and so we said, hey, let's put that on the calendar. Let's go see a movie tomorrow night. So that's just the nurturing. That's the fertilizing, right?
So we say, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We say God first, then our spouse, then our children, and work and committees and friends. They're all down here. And so if it comes push to shove that this work committee and this woman is asking for you to cancel your date night with your wife,
oh, wow.
You got to be very careful that what you're prioritizing. What are you showing everybody, your spouse and this other person, if you prioritize them over your spouse?
Definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
Red flag for sure. Guys, the last part here that we really want to get into, and this is really what Rock Solid Families is about. This is what your pastor, your priest, these people can be involved with. If you really find yourself in this battle, all right, get help. Yeah. Get help, and you need to get help by somebody that you're not emotionally attached to.
Yeah, it's not a parent.
It's not that person that you're interested in. Like, I'm struggling right now. I'm spending a lot of time with you, and I'm feeling guilty with my wife. That's not the right person. You need to go to somebody who understands God's way, God's word, but somebody who can call you out, somebody that cares about you, and you need to go through that advice seeking. All right, so don't hesitate to do that. And what I'll say, hun, I have found this to be as much of a challenge as pornography. Because it is silent on so many fronts. It starts, remember we talked about the shifts, and the very first shift is we have the mind shift. And so I can't read anyone's mind, but that's where the seed starts. And so, that's where pornography starts. It all starts just in the mind, where you start to get that fantasy. And so when you start to see that, man, this is owning a lot of my headspace, my mind, that's a time where you arrest it. And if you're struggling with arresting it, then through prayer and counsel, that's where you got to really grab this thing and put it to its final end.
Well, and when we're talking about seeking help, the reason why I say not your parents is because a lot of times, and I just happen to have this thing, it says don't give up the ship. You will have a parent who maybe has a history, maybe your mom's, maybe your dad cheated on your mom. And so the minute you say, I think my husband's having an emotional affair, she's like, you're out of there, come move in with me. This is wrong. And so of course they're going to come and protect you. So I would say get some neutral outside Christian professional help so that they can come at it as, okay, how are we going to work through this, instead of just throwing in the towel or putting blame on one person. Like, it takes two to have this drift. And sometimes we don't even realize the drift is occurring until it's too late and you've run aground in the ship.
Yeah, well, what you referred to there is, you have to get help and counsel from somebody who is emotionally not going to get tripped up by this. So, if you speak to somebody who right away is going to get their emotions, they're just as much of a problem as what's already going on in your mind.
Exactly.
So that's why you want to seek that neutral emotional person.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so, at the end of the day, well, why? And so Matthew 19, chapter 4, verses, what do you have there? Oh, I want to make sure. Verses 4 through 6, I'm sorry. Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? And he said, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. And, that's a pretty big deal. Because when you separate it, that's called a wound. That's called a wound. And sometimes wounds really can be devastating, right? And in this case, when we separate the husband and the wife, there's not a good case that can be made for what happens with divorce in terms of whether anybody will get hurt. People get hurt in these situations. And so that's what the wound is about, because two became one and they got tore apart.
So by prioritizing your spouse and guarding your heart, you can protect your marriage from the dangers and really the temptation of emotional affairs. Our world is so sick and it is so distorted on what is healthy, what is appropriate. And so please, don't go looking at the world for your guidance and your direction. If you're already feeling like you're being pulled in one, then confront it head on with honesty and a commitment that you're going to rebuild your trust with your spouse and you're going to work on that intimacy with your spouse and prioritizing them.
Yeah. We are at Rock Solid Families, and we're talking about a Christian-based ministry here. And this is why we are Christian-based, because if I just had to be concerned with a spouse who maybe we've been irritating each other for the last few years, maybe we're kind of at each other's throat, then it's like, I don't even know if they care that much about me, and so you start to get that hardness of heart. But the fact that we have an honoring of God here, we are to honor God first. And so the reason why we're keeping our marriage together is not just for our partner, it's for honoring God, what he has blessed and what he has put together. And so that's why, he's the major stopgap here. That's why we want God in the middle of this marriage. Yeah. Because if he's no place in there, then I'm only dealing with one person, and we'll do it on a human level.
That's so funny you bring that up, hon, because even if you aren't a Christian, I've had couples come into me who really gave each other permission to have not just emotional affairs with other men and women, but physical ones. Right. Like in their mind, it spiced things up. And it's funny because they would kind of not tell me that when they came in originally, but then they would say, we don't trust each other. And they were really talking about the erosion of the relationship and the mistrust they had. And then they kind of filled me in that was kind of an agreed upon decision by the two of them. And then they wondered why their marriage fell apart. And so you may think it's a great idea. It's not. It doesn't spice up the relationship. It erodes it. And the deeper the emotional affair, the quicker it erodes.
Yeah. In the moment, it might seem spicy, but it actually ends up burning you. So again, hey, our challenge for you guys this week is to give an honest assessment on where your brain is, where your thoughts are, who you're being intrigued by, to spend time with, to have conversation with. And if that person is of the opposite sex and you're enjoying them, all right, it's not a matter of slamming the door on them and telling them that they're dead.
They're evil.
Because they, like you said before, they may not even know what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for listening to this. Rock Solid Families, again, is a faith-based coaching organization in Southeast Indiana. And so if we can be of help to you, we do Zoom sessions. So you can be anywhere in the country and we can work with you and your spouse. You can find more information at rocksolidfamilies.org. So hopefully, connect with us, seek help. If not us, somewhere around you to get the help you need for your marriage to see it not just survive, but to thrive.
All right. So we want to thank our sponsors again. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. So thanks again for listening to the Rock Solid Family podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.
Rock Solid Families would like to thank Hoosier Ice House for being a proud sponsor of the Rock Solid Families podcast. In the heart of historic Lawrenceburg, Indiana, the Ice House is at the corner of Vine and High Streets. The historic building evokes a feeling of comfort with spacious indoor and outdoor dining, a large bar, and comfortable dining areas. Large enough to host parties, yet intimate enough to feel like your favorite neighborhood restaurant. So thank you again for the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.